Welcome to the Urgency of Awareness podcast. I'm Jody Farr.
And I'm your girl, Nita Renee.
Join us as we take the topic of health, grab those concepts that we learned in season 1 and apply them as we discuss things like food, where we live, how that affects our health, and the dietitian field.
And as always, capacity builders, we're going to be looking at this from an individual, community, and institutional lens.
Come on in.
Come ride with us.
Welcome, audience members. Today's episode, think of someone who is healthy. Picture them. You got the picture? Describe that person. Today's episode, let's talk about health. Come on in.
So we have Leslie and JC with us for this amazing conversation. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves to our listening audience?
I am a registered dietitian, and what does that not mean? Not the food police, not the guilt inducer, not taking away all the food that we like to eat. Absolutely not. This is about helping my patient. I'm the GPS. I mean, that's really what I am. We're going to help to navigate. We're going to do that road together. I'm not going to tell you what to do. We're going to come to solutions with what is reasonable, what is maintainable, and what is sustainable.
Right on. Love it. Love it.
I'll follow your lead. Okay, Leslie, I'm JC. I am the trauma-informed personal trainer, yoga teacher, meditation coach, the wellness guy. What I'm not is I'm not the person sitting on the high shelf saying, once you become as enlightened as I am and doing the things in the way that it's supposed to be done, then all of a sudden you will also be enough. I'm the person saying you are already everything that you need to be in order to go ahead and maximize this moment of life. So that's me.
Love that. Love that. So, Jody, you asked a very interesting question at the top of the show. I just want to say right off top, Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's who you thought of when I said
Marky Mark.
who's healthy?
Yeah, straight up, right? He's a water drinker. He's buffed. He's 52. I'm approaching 50, so we're in the same age group. And it's like, wow, that he must be the epitome of health.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Not to mention he's white.
Yeah, well, and when you were talking, I was just thinking of, and that's as audience members now think about your definition of healthy. How many normalized dominant identities did it have?
Yeah.
Because you can be extremely healthy and be in a wheelchair. You can be extremely healthy and not be fully able-minded all the time. Have a disability regarding your mind, but we often don't think that.
Right.
And that as a female, you thought of a male too.
Yeah.
Isn't that deep? And white,
And white.
and upper wealthy, all those triangles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So audience members, think of your description of health, how attached it is to normalized dominant identities. Isn't that interesting? I'm so excited to have you two here because I think sometimes in your guys' field, even in your intro, you mentioned, that we in your field, it projects one picture of health. And if you don't achieve that, then man, you're not doing it right. And so it's an either or, when it comes to this health. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Oh, well, I have people that say, well, what do you eat in a day? What do you eat in a day?
Yeah.
Let's have that conversation about what I eat in a day. And you know what? Sometimes it's having Honey Nut Cheerios or Lucky Charms because the little marshmallows are just so funky.
Yes.
And that's enjoyable. And it's whole milk.
And they make them milk a different color, which I just enjoy.
Yeah,
I gotta say.
Right.
Yeah.
All of them. Oh my God. How could you possibly do that? Because I like it, because it's fuel for my body, because it brings me happiness. That is why. And if I had a bowl of unflavored oatmeal, I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to be bitchy all day long because that is not going to do it for me. Yeah. I mean, this is it. Yeah. It's like, I think RDs are held to this standard of pristine and you have to be perfect. There is no perfection here. No perfection. It is
I'm going to say
against yourself.
I'm going to say that for myself and for the audience. There's not perfection in health. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's not a healthy body.
You don't get points for that. Brownie points, kale points. There's no points that are awarded for that.
Yeah.
Or gummy points.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, because you like gummy.
Like
you like
gummies.
gummies, and you can still be healthy and eat a gummy.
You can.
Straight up.
You can.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and health is a verb. It's not a noun. It's not something that you are or aren't. Like you have your moments of going like, hey, right now I am acknowledging my state of healthiness. Yeah. I mean, I am a cisgendered, straight-passing gay man in America. When you're talking about Marky Mark, I'm going like, oh yeah, all the Calvin Klein underwear models. like all of a sudden I go there as I am now officially, according to my BMI, an overweight American. I am
welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
I'll give you a Pop-Tart later. That's our welcoming committee. Yeah.
Strawberry, not cherry.
Okay.
We could talk Pop-Tarts for days. In the fitness world, I'm supposed to be the one who's faster than all of my students, stronger than all of my students, the one who cares more about getting better every day, getting 1% better every day than my students. And I'm the antithesis of that. And I think part of the reason why I have been able to find success with my normalized dominance as a white, straight passing, masculine-ish guy is people go, oh, JC's just different enough that we will listen in. But at the end of the day, what we are talking about when we are looking at someone who is healthy is as clear as mud. In reality, from a society's lens, what is healthy? 18 to 40-year-old white upper socioeconomic female with a bachelor's degree in philosophy or English who's normally married to a male identifying human who makes enough money that they allow them to. That's who we sell the idea of health and wellness to. That is the voice. When we look at who that serves, the conversation's serving very few.
Right.
Because a small population
very small
holds all
population.
of those identities.
Yeah.
And you pointed out something I want us to catch is that because of your identities, you can have a message that's a little different than the norm message of your profession, and it can be accepted. But if you held different identities, it might be just completely ignored. Right?
It's only if I needed heart surgery, I would not care if my heart surgeon had a healthy heart. I hope they are healthy.
Get through the surgery.
To get to the surgery, I want them to be good at doing heart surgery. I'm not going to check their heart health. I'm going to go, are you good at doing heart surgery? In the fitness world, they want you to look like you can do the thing that you are training them to do. I'm like, no, I want a facilitator. I want an RDN who is knowledgeable and empathetic and thoughtful and is a wonderful listener and makes me go, I have power. That they are teaching and inspiring me to understand my own health journey more so than looking a certain way.
And that can come in anybody.
That can come in anybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're not saying, oh, well, it can't be a normalized dominant body. Yeah, it can. But for us to be aware that how we receive messages, if it comes from normalized dominant body, then if it doesn't, and how much our picture of health is tied to that normalized dominant. And I'm going to take it one step further and have you guys talk about and the normalized dominant experience. So so that you can say things in your field of healthiness that you have a higher chance of experience if you hold a normalized dominant identity, such as movement or things that are said in your guys' field that is often encouraged. Yes, not that it's false, but that it also, you're going to have a higher probability if you hold normalized dominant identities. Does that resonate for your guys' fields?
Absolutely. And the word that gets thrown out there about how could you eat all that, or you're as good as thin looks. I mean, all these crazy things that are so condescending, so guilt producing, so ridiculous, and also negative. Right? Eat less, move more. Said who and why? And why should I do that? And is that going to translate to being healthier? No, not necessarily. Or don't eat foods that are white. Or don't eat foods that are black. Or don't eat foods that are purple. Or don't eat foods that are orange. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And is that really helping people? It isn't, because it's just throwing all of these other things that may be unattainable. And maybe Marky Mark does eat that way. I'm going to guarantee you that when the camera is off, he is eating gummy bears or something else. Come on, because he wouldn't be happy otherwise. It's like, what are we doing here? Because we just forget about that. It's like, no, you cannot be healthy and happy with your food. If you're going to be healthy with your food, then you better be restricting. You better be in this line. And is that reflective of what it is that we see? Oftentimes, I would say the sinfluencers that are out there, like shoving kale into their mouth with reckless abandon. It's like, no, you're not happy. Or I'll just eat meat to the excludes of all else. And you're not going to the bathroom if you're doing that, because come on, you just blocked up the creek. So all of these things are so critically important. And who is that reflecting? What audience is actually doing that in real life? No, but well, I should be that way because that's what I'm hearing. And look at the way these people look. So obviously they got it all going on. They know what to do because look at those bodies. Hashtag Photoshop. Just saying. Okay. Just saying. And things pulled like this way. Yeah. Oh my God, my eyes are on either side of my head like a flounder. It's like, what is that? That's not even real.
Your face is too tight.
Well, and the pictures that we put out there, and I going back to other episodes that listeners have heard is not about either or. So I'm not about like, oh my gosh, if you can live that way and move all the time and eat kale all the time, oh, thumbs up. Like that's beautiful. What I'm asking us is to be aware though of the messages we put out there. Just because I'm experiencing it and I, can do it, I can move. Well, that has a part to do with my identity. I'm able-bodied. Do you know what I mean? Yep. And so when I say things that work for me, am I aware that may exclude a lot of the population, and not just exclude them, but perpetuate what we find is a lot of shame in the health. When we think of a healthy body, well, if I don't have a healthy body, then somehow I'm failing. And if I'm failing, that kicks in the shame, so it's not about either or. Like, hey, if you can do that, that's great. But also having that awareness that not everybody can. And how do we say that as well, so that health can really, everybody can start to obtain it or look differently at it.
Well, and it's about slowing down enough to acknowledge who are you attempting to include within your health movement. I'll tell a story. I was opening a location of a franchise boutique gym, and they have parameters for when you're on the treadmill, that 3.5 to 4.5 miles an hour to be a walker, 4.5 to 5.5 to be a jogger, 5.5 and above to be a runner. And from the average eye, it's like, okay, that's great. You're telling me where to start. So I'm talking with people before this gym opens. This probably about 60-year-old white woman comes in very nervous. Her doctor just said, you need to start exercising, otherwise bad things are going to happen. She walks into a gym clearly shaking, like, I don't know if I can do this. Yeah. And this gym says like 99% of people can do this workout if you can stand and walk. You can do this workout. I go, well, there's 99% of people. And again, I go, okay, I get what you're trying to say. Accessibility. So through many conversations, she finally signs up. She's like, okay, this is going to be my space. I met this JC guy. It's like he said, it's going to be okay. She shows up to the studio the first day. I'm not the coach of the class. She walks into the class, nervous, shaking. She gets on the treadmill and the coach says, all right, parameters, 3.5 to 4.5, 4.5, 5.5. All of a sudden she goes 3.5. Because of course that's the baseline.
Right.
That's the starting point. The treadmill was 2 miles too fast an hour for her. Yeah. She ran out of the studio, went into the janitor's closet, sat down on the ground, and started losing her mind. Yeah. I was in the office. I was working. We sat in that office, in the janitor's office, literally the whole class, like consoling, being like, you lied. Like this, like I am not enough within the construct of society here. We walked back in because I had established a relationship with her. We walked back in. Her starting point was 1.5 miles an hour. Yeah. She had to tune out the message of normalized culture, which is attempting to include more, but not including everybody. Yeah. Right. And all of a sudden she's like, okay, this is where I shall start. Yeah.
And for our listeners, for myself, is that awareness of what does healthy mean for me, and then what does it mean for other people? Because my healthiness and Leslie's might be two different things, and it's not hers is better, mine's better, hers is right, mine's right. No, let's just drop that. We got to drop that. It is about meeting people where they are, so that we can live out that health to the best of our ability. When I lived in a neighborhood that I always said is at best was working poor, and I traveled, I depended, it was a 2-block radius that we were extremely tight, and my neighbors watched over my kids. I like my neighbor, literally, that's where I dropped my kids off when I had to travel, and then they watched over my property. Now, in that neighborhood, I already have identities that aren't necessarily found in the neighborhood. So I out-educate most of my neighbors. I out-earn most of my neighbors. I can speak formal English if I need to, but I'm also casual. So there's one thing that matched my neighborhood was my body. You know, being big boned, and in this body, when it's in my own time, we'll have a cut off t-shirt, cut off here, not here, because those days are gone, right? Right. And boy shorts, you know, and so my body fit the neighborhood. And of course I grew up, so my mannerisms and that fit the neighborhood. But neighborhood kids would come over. If neighborhood kids would come over and I would serve them a lettuce salad, and dietitians are like, what are you talking about? Like, you could be a role model. You could show that, you know, that lettuce is great. And I'm like, no, because if they come over and they have a lettuce salad, they're going to be like, see, you know, because I already have differences from my neighborhood, and they're gonna be like, see, she don't get it, you know, she's trying to, you know, she's being uppity, or she's, you know, and then all of a sudden, if I lose relationship, I lose survival in that neighborhood. And when I explain that to dietitians, and I love dietitians, I work with dietitians all the time, is they're like, oh, with that awareness, they totally got it. Dietitians have tons of passion, but bringing that awareness that you can't lead with the science of a lettuce salad, you got to understand what that health looks different in different neighborhoods, and and understand how are you invested in those identities as well. How does those identities feed you, that you have that picture of health that you have? How does it feed you? And how does it sometimes give you shame as well? So when I think of healthy, one of the things I do, I also think of a lot of strength, right? Now I've grown up out in the rural, so I've always been very strong. So when I go to the gym, I'm lifting a lot of times what men are lifting, and I always take great pride in that. I'm like, you know, I might be big, but I'm you know, I'm strong. Right. Well, I looked at it one time and I'm like, man, I think that's because I grew up in a normalized dominant societal system that is continuously telling me that my body isn't normalized dominant because I'm obese, and is constantly telling me that I failed there. So I take extra pride in being strong, if that makes sense. If I didn't live in this normalized dominant societal system and we had a bigger definition of health, I think I'd just be like, well, no, I'm just healthy. You know what I mean? But I'm like, no, I can lift. I'm going to lift this like the guys lift it, and see, I'm all strong. And I take great pride in that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I also, as I dig into that, I think, oh, that's to overcompensate some of these other pieces. That females aren't strong, you know, is one. That's that triangle pointing down. But also that my body, because it's obese, you might not be healthy. Well, I'll show you that I'm healthy. I'll show you I can lift this weight. So as we think of those definitions of health, you know, where do those definitions come from? Those pictures that we have. And then how do they feed us, or how do we counteract to them as well?
Right.
And in your guys' field, sometimes there's this one picture that we message towards and we try to get people to, but it's not a picture that is even achievable by some identities and some experiences.
And if we talk about the expectations a little bit, right? Expectation as a registered dietitian. Oh, well, people are just going to be so happy to listen to what it is I have to say, because I have all of this competence and all of this experience and all of this excellence to bring to the table. Newsflash, and not always. And interesting, in this study that was done by Southpaw Insights, where they actually surveyed 2,000 people, not 10, not 20, 2,000 people. And what it is that they found, that what people were saying is that nutrition recommendations from dietitians were not for someone like them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said that, and that makes me very sad. So we kind of come back to the question is, why is that? Because maybe the expectations were based upon, it has to be about the evidence. And this is what the science says. And you have to do it as much as you can. Again, not thinking about reality, not thinking about the practical application of what that implementation might be. Tell me what's going on in your life and how can I work what you do with your eating around it, not your life goes away and you just need to think about the eating. It isn't that way. And the other part of this is that Truly, I mean, I've been giving recommendations for a long time. Like I talk to myself all the time. Nobody listens to me. Nonetheless, it's like if you do something 60 to 70% of the time, that's enough.
Right.
It doesn't have to be 100. You are not going to be better if you do it 100. You're probably going to stress yourself out if you do that, but you're not going to be able to sustain it. And it doesn't matter what people do for one day. This is not about one day. What's happening over a period of time? That's what makes the difference.
Okay. Well, there you go. I follow that. But I'm going to bring that up because for myself, listeners, what picture do we have of health? And then what's the picture we have of getting there? Because the picture we have of getting there sometimes is so narrow and so rigid and so normalized dominant that it's leaving so many people thinking, well, it's not for me, which I've personally experienced that with dietitians. It's like, man, I have so much respect for the field and so much appreciation for the passion, but I haven't always found it relevant. And so like in my old neighborhood, when people would come out from WIC or other, programs, the neighborhood just rolls their eyes because what they're going to say often isn't, people don't feel they're listened to. They don't feel that their ways of cooking and looking at health is honored. And they just got told that what they're doing isn't right. And a lot of times they're in their head, they're thinking like I was, well, I can't serve a lettuce salad. My neighborhood, I'm not going to be safe. I'm going to break relationship if I do that. I can have a lettuce salad by myself, but when kids come over, I got to have something there that's going to keep that relationship, And if we don't increase our awareness, we don't understand that. We can't broaden our definition of health, and we can't broaden all the paths on the ways to get there. And when we broaden, it's not about it. Go back to other podcasts. It's about both and. It's about both your definition of health and my definition of health both have health in them. And your way of getting there and my way of getting there are both ways to get there. You might do it 100% of the time and I might do 70, but that's both okay. But I know you were going to say something way back when.
You guys make me think about recently this last year, I actually had gained like 17 pounds over the stay-at-home orders. I never say post-COVID because we're still dealing with COVID. So post-stay-at-home, getting back to the habit of going to the doctor, they were like, your blood pressure's up. So we monitored it for a little while and I came back in, they come in a couple of weeks. It's still up. So now they want to talk about medication and that it's genetic because I'm Black, because they haven't met my parents, right? So you have no idea yet. I've just told you that they have high blood pressure, but because my parents have high blood pressure and I'm Black and because of my height, weight, and age per your BMI, which is based on a dominant belief system, right? I am obese. Now, I have all my life wanted to put this weight on. I have an overactive thyroid. So for you to ask me, and they did ask me to lose weight, is like telling me that I look horrible, that everything that I'm doing is bad. How can we talk about it not being this, you looking at me and going, she's Black, she's almost 50, right? She has high blood pressure. How can we think about that differently? And what kind of conversations can we have? So I fired that doctor, right? And they got me a West African doctor, nutritionist, and nurse practitioner. And we talked about my body, right? The historically, in the context of historic, right?
Of the life that you're living.
The trauma that my body has experienced, right? And what weight loss will do to my body and also weight gain. So it was determined that my body never has had that kind of weight, didn't know how to deal with it. Okay, these are the answers I'm looking for, right? Right. Okay, so we're not talking about genetics, we're talking about my body, right? Okay, I can make some adjustments for that, right? Just move my body a little bit more. You're not asking me to alter my food patterns or anything like that. So I can move my body a little bit more. That's probably good. When I get older, I want to still be able to use my knees. But dominant culture belief has us believing that someone who looks like me is like epic health goal. And it's really not. It's a struggle to actually be able to maintain a real healthy weight. And America makes me sometimes feel like if I have those extra pounds, I'm just this fat nobody.
And I will tell you something, and now I can say it now that I've retired from the NFL, so the tell-all book will be written at this point. But, having been the advocate for a long time, and we think, these players and they're so successful and everything is fine. Well, a lot of players, and you establish rapport, right? You talk to somebody, you get to trust, they trust you, and you have a conversation. And players this past year who said the first time in their life coming to training camp where they didn't have to ask a question, can I take 2 servings of that? Because they didn't have it growing up, and they went to a university that didn't offer it. That was number 1. Number 2 was about the bullying, the pressure. Your body doesn't look a certain way. Well, guess what? when you're on the field, you're not like Marky Mark. You cover things up because you have 300 pounds coming towards you and you try to protect what you can. And would that make you a better player? Hell no, it would not. So having that conversation almost daily about let's not do that, and here's why.
Yeah.
Because then you have players that start second guessing. Well, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was because coach is saying I don't look a certain way. So, and there it is. And they don't play the way they should because mentally now they are
That
screwed
messaging.
with that
So
particular
even
conversation.
the picture of health then affects the professional and the picture of how we
If
should
you look like a
eat.
pencil, you probably should not be on the NFL field because guess what? You're going to be run over the way that it is.
Well, and it comes to this idea of what are the metrics of enoughness as opposed to the metrics of being capable of doing the thing you want to do. Like if I said, okay, what is desired if you're running? What's the desire to be what? Fast.
Okay.
If you're lifting weights, the desire is to do what?
Be strong.
Be strong. Yeah. Let's say you do yoga. Your desire is to be flexible. Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm not flexible. Chill. Yeah. All of these things, you go, who's decided that?
Yes.
What that is.
Like if you go to the gym, it's like, okay, what metric matters? Is it the 40-yard sprint? Well, why? Is it I was the first time in a high school tennis team that was put on varsity because I worked harder than my teammates. Yeah. My coach told me, you are not a good enough tennis player to be on this varsity team, but you make those other 9 guys better because you work harder than them. What's the metric for that? I'm like, great. My coach just told me that I'm not good.
Right.
And that's why I'm here.
Right.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
Yeah.
That every single person is unique. We hear it all the time. If 100 people ate the same thing and did the same exercise plan, they would all have different metrics of success from that experience. That alone says, if anyone says, here's the 3 things to do to make this thing happen, run. The simplified messages, they may be coming from that place of how often we have someone saying, please help me. And we want to give them the answer. The answer is, first of all, I think you're pretty darn wonderful. And now let's do some things to get to know you better. And by get to know you better, meaning allow you to know you better.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then you can figure out sports psychology 101. All that sport is getting to ready position before your opponent. What does that mean? You need to know yourself, know your reality, and go in this moment, here's what I can do to be successful. We don't do that very often. We go, I need to look like Michael. I need to look like Serena. I need to look like Marky Mark. If I am not the one who's doing the underwear ad, I'm not XYZ.
Yeah.
That's so irrational, yet is so ingrained as capital T truth within our culture.
Truth, and then it's then it becomes our definition and our picture, and it's our measurements. I want to go back to what you said. Is so many of our measurements are coming from a normalized dominant experience, and they just don't even fit if you don't have those identities, like the BMI and the history of how that's created. It's not taking into consideration a whole bunch of other identities, and so how is that BMI by itself the measurement of health?
Yeah.
And then I love what you're saying is once we gain this awareness, we got to go back individually and look at, hey, why am I going here? You know, I'm going to the, why am I going to the gym, or why am I running? What is it for me that brings me happiness and brings me my definition of health? And then when we find that, to be careful that we don't start, because it always feels good when I got this lift routine and I just benched, almost 200, it feels awesome. But then we sometimes, especially if we got those normalized dominant identities, we want to start to say, well, this is the way to do it. So Jatan, you just need to do this, girl. You just need to do this. And we really have to be aware that what worked for us isn't the thing that works for everybody. Yeah. And I find so much in this field, in the healthy field, we have these little short phrases like, eat less, move more, all these little things that I'm not saying there's not some truth in movement or eating less. I'm not saying that, but
for some people,
but to say that it would work for everybody all the time and to be that bold about it, I would rather say, hey, what is your picture of health? Let's just meet like you said, listen to folks first, and then together make that plan. And so again, I'm not saying like dietitians, oh my gosh, there's a wealth of knowledge there that you have that I learned from. But me, but if you just give it to me, it's Charlie Brown's teacher talking, right? And because of the picture of our societal system and how we view health, when you start giving me your information about health, all I'm hearing is I'm doing it wrong. See, I freaking failed, and that starts that cycle of shame. And the cycle of shame is does not end with healthy.
And if we peel it back somewhat, and right now, precision nutrition, like hot word, precision nutrition.
I don't even know what that means. What's that mean?
It's that you're going to customize and personalize it, which you have to do. But I think we need to take a step back from that. Decision nutrition. Does that person that I'm talking with want to make a decision about what they do with their eating? That is not my decision to make.
Right.
That is for me to talk with that individual and say, right now, not 6 months from now, not a year from now, right now, what would you like to do?
Yeah.
All right. Not throw away all the food that's in your home and feel terrible about what you're doing and get out and move more. And now you're exhausted because you didn't eat. No. Just only focus on one taste bud, bitter. It's like, I don't think so. That is not realistic. So sometimes we get too sciencey with the recommendations. This is what we have to do. Yes, customization, but it's a hell of a lot more complex.
Yeah, because because I love what you just said, because you can ask the quote unquote right question, like, what would you like to do right now?
Right.
You know what I mean? But if I'm not aware of our societal system and it's normalized dominant, and if I'm showing up, really fit, and I showed up as a dietitian, and if I'm not aware of that, of how I'm showing up, how I'm being perceived, if I'm not aware of, here we have this one definition of health, even though I asked the question, I tried to meet you where you are. Jatan is most likely still going to give the answer she thinks I want to hear, or give the answer that the societal system has influenced her on.
Yes.
So so I think to not just ask those questions, but we have to gain that awareness of all of this, and then start talking to folks about, where are you? What is your picture of health? Why is that? And help people process so that they can start to become more aware of why they have that picture, what they want.
Yeah.
And then after you talk about that, then talk about, okay, so with all this into consideration, where do you think we should start?
Yeah.
Right. And adding into that, what foods do you like? And what foods do you not like?
Yeah.
Because why should that be my decision
Right.
as the registered dietitian saying, these are the foods. I hate all of those. It's like, okay, you didn't hear a word that I said, and I am out the door.
Yeah.
And why would it make sense for me to take all the foods that somebody enjoys and say, you can never have those again? That's insanity.
Right.
It's cruel.
Yeah.
It's just
Leslie's normally the rhymer, but I like using this one all the time. We need to get to a place where people see that things are happening through them rather than to them.
Yes.
That's
Like
good.
like people walk into space and they go, all right, do it to me.
Right.
Like the people that I work with, and the best smile I ever get from them is when they're doing the thing and I just shout, this is all your fault. And they look at me and they go, heck yeah. Like, I am responsible for what I'm doing right now. I'm making choices. I'm deciding to rest. I'm deciding to push. I am not, no one's kicking me.
Yes.
No one's forcing me.
Yeah.
I am deciding to take ownership of my experience to the degree that my reality allows me to. And all of a sudden, what does that do? It shifts the way that we move and perceive our bodies.
Yeah.
yes.
Like when people actually think that they have some ownership or some agency within their own existence, it's the prerequisite for everything else.
No, as we talk about this, I present as a Black woman. People of color, Black, Indigenous, brown folks, are not in the belief that they have agency. It takes a little while. I share a funny story I want to share today about my realizing I had agency and how that collapsed me for a moment in time because I hadn't not been aware that that's where I was. And when we get there, we do have a breakdown. It's like, what does that mean in the scope of the dominant system? Wait, I have agency. I can make choice. I can have a voice. I can advocate and push back. It's the most liberating and free thing I think you could ever experience is that aha, like, aha. I told Jody, I was like, I'm going to go buy a Subaru, right? right? I'm middle class. I did not buy a Subaru. I bought a Buick. Same different thing, right, Sam? But that agency that you talk about, like getting people to understand who are on the other side of the table, if these people are coming to you in a space where they don't believe they have agency, and you to relinquish that power to them is uplifting. Like, I just want to honor that you guys are doing that, and hopefully more people in the field are doing that, right? Because that's one place intimately with your food that you can learn your agency and get real about your trauma, your childhood trauma, right, and your actual healing journey.
Well, and it's also not about being a self-e. It's not the self-e. It's not the self-me. It's the self-we. We are doing this together.
Yeah.
It has to be that way. Otherwise, our credibility is zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I want to thank you guys for being here. And I think that's the message is even of awareness. The urgency of awareness is not about getting awareness so I can be like, oh, I can enlighten you. It's about getting awareness so that I can sit at a table and we always say hold capacity or build my capacity, that I can listen first. If I'm not aware, I'm often reacting to what you say or even judging what you say. And in the health field, so for our listeners, in the health field, our picture of health, where did it come from? Why do we have it? And does it fit for everyone? And to realize, like you guys had talked about, there's numerous ways to get there. And are we taking that? Are we doing it for us? Are we going to the gym to try to, get this picture, this normalized dominant societal system has given us? Or are we defining what we feel is healthy? And then are we going to the gym or eating the things we want because, it brings me comfort, so this does bring me health, or this is how I want to operate. Yeah. So thank you guys for the insight and bringing this material to the topic of health. I appreciate it.
Yeah, much appreciation. You guys are fantastic. And as we close, this is us building capacity in our individual selves, in our institutions, in our communities. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in. We'll see you soon.